husband, Dr. Ami.
Yes, sir. I can see you, sir. And can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So we have already gone live on the YouTube. So we can start the meeting. So welcome and good morning, all friends, for joining. Welcome to the Saturday Club meeting. And today we have a very interesting topic and a very eminent speaker. We talk a lot about clinical cases and all the topics related to medicine, but we do not talk much about research. So today we have a pleasure of having Dr. Shehnaz Kantharia, essentially an ENT surgeon, but she has expanded her work more towards clinical research apart from doing her ENT. She is head research and academics at KAILASH Cancer Hospital, Muni Sevashram, Goraj, located near Baroda. She is consultant and head department of ENT and head and neck surgery. She is also coordinator for fellowship program in oral and head and neck surgery, oncosurgery. And to top it all, she is member of Ethics Council of Indian Society of Clinical Research. So that speaks for our work in this area of clinical research. So Dr. Shehnaz, thank you for agreeing to be our guest speakers. Welcome to Saturday Club meeting. And now you can have the stage for 45 minutes. Then we'll have 5-7 minutes of interaction. So over to Dr. Shehnaz.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, respected doctors, my colleagues and friends who have joined the Saturday Club meeting. At the outset, I would like to thank Dr. Satish Pandya, sir, for inviting me to give this talk. So basically, my talk will be about what is research, what is clinical research, and good clinical practices, because anybody who's associated with research knows that good clinical practice are the mainstay of clinical research. Then I'll talk briefly about ethics committee, and then my journey into research, which I feel has been pretty exciting so far. And mainly because lots of you must be wondering what a surgeon is doing in research. So can you see my slides, please?
Yes, you can put it on slideshow.
Okay, sir. Is it visible now?
No, what you do is that on the bottom taskbar, you will see a slideshow symbol. So then you don't have to go into any of this. Or you can click on the from the beginning, left side on the top panel on the leftmost, still above that, from beginning. Yeah, okay. I think that there you can go. Yes.
Okay. So thank you for the generous introduction, sir. And I'm associated with KAILASH Cancer Hospital and Research Center, which is run by the NGO Muni Sevashram. And I head the research and academics division there. I'm a ENT and a head and neck surgeon by training. And I am into the field of research also since 2012. So involved in it since last 10 years. So I have nothing to disclose. I'll start my talk with the basic, what is research? So I believe that there are three main types of research. These types are not mutually exclusive, and some may overlap or can be used in combination with each other also. So the first type of research is the basic research. And here the basic scientists seek answers to fundamental questions to the various biological process or the pathogenesis of a phenomenon, process, or a disease. So basic science sorry. So basic science research provides the broad-based knowledge that what is the underlying cause and what are the solutions to that. So it is often conducted in controlled laboratory settings. It may be undertaken without looking for long-term benefits other than the advancement of knowledge or to make discoveries in specified areas which will have applied use. The second type of research is the clinical research, and it is defined as the research which is conducted in human subjects, utilizes both a randomized selection process and a control group. However, it means clinical research is anything which involves interaction with human subjects and is designed to change human behavior or outcomes. It can be conducted in a variety of settings and not just in a controlled laboratory setting. And there are many different types of clinical research, clinical trial being the main in clinical research. So clinical trials are mainly designed to determine whether new or current interventions are both safe and effective for changing outcomes in humans. They use existing knowledge which is gained from basic research or practical experience for the purpose of creating new or improved products, processes, or practices. And there are different types of clinical research, but all of them generally utilize a randomized selection process and a control group. So the randomized controlled trial is considered to be the gold standard for clinical trials. The third type of research includes epidemiological studies. And so epidemiology is the study of the distribution and determinants of health-related states, disease, and events in population, and the application of this study to the control of health problems. It will also answer questions about who gets diseases, why they get them, and what are the determinants of risk. Epidemiological study focuses on groups of people rather than individuals, and it will also study those who are healthy as well as those who are sick in order to determine crucial differences between the two groups. So these are the basic three ways in which research is divided, and I will be talking mainly on the clinical research and the clinical trials. So again, clinical trials would be divided into treatment type, which tests new approaches to treat a disease, the prevention kind of trials. So in this, what approaches can be taken to prevent a disease are studied. The early detection or screening trials, where new ways to find hidden disease are tested. And the diagnostic kind of trials, where new tests or procedures are studied for a particular disease. So once we talk of clinical trials, we are talking of studies which are conducted in human being. So the entire process of development of a new drug starts with the basic research in the laboratory. Then that particular novel product is used in animals. So that becomes the preclinical phase of study of a drug. And then comes the research in human beings, which is the clinical trials. So in clinical trials, there are 4 phases, phase 1, 2, 3, and 4. The phase 1 is considered to be the pharmacological phase, in which the number of participants is around 15 to 30. It's very small. It is the first study in humans, and basically it is done to understand the pharmacokinetics of that particular drug. So it is said that about 1/3 of studies which enter into the phase 1 of the drug development would fail at this point in time. The second would be the phase 2 study, in which the number of participants would be 100 to 300. This is considered to be an exploratory kind of phase, in which mainly it is done to study the efficacy and safety of that particular drug or the molecule. And again, it is said that 50% of the studies which enter into phase 2 would fail at this point. Then would be the phase 3, which is the confirmatory phase, in which the number of participants would be around 100 to thousands. Here, what we do is we compare new agents with the standard of care, and also we see into the safety of that particular drug or the molecule. Again, 1/3 of the protocols which enter into phase 3 would fail. Phase 4 is mainly the post-marketing study, which is done to understand the long-term safety and efficacy of that particular product. And it is, the number of participants is huge, from several hundred to several thousands. So this is the basic timeline and how the new drug development process occurs, from basic research to development of a prototype of the product, then the preclinical phase, which is the animal study, and then the clinical development or the clinical trial, where I just explained the phase 1, 2, and 3, and then there will be an approval and the marketing of that particular drug, molecule, or intervention. So whenever there is talk about clinical research and clinical trial, it is always good to understand what is good clinical practice, or GCP, because without a person being introduced to good clinical practice and certified in good clinical practice, it would not be possible to undertake any clinical research or trial. So what is good clinical practice? It is a standard for the design, conduct, performance, monitoring, auditing, recording, analysis, and reporting of clinical trial that provides assurance that whatever data is reported and all the results are credible, they are accurate, and also the rights, integrity, safety, and confidentiality of trial subjects are protected. So clinical research or clinical trial is basically a very methodical form of research, a very methodical form of medical science, in which data integrity and reporting of data is considered to be a cornerstone. So it is said that if there is anything which is done, it has to be recorded, and if it is not recorded, it is taken for granted that it is not done. So data management, data recording is extremely important in clinical trials, and good clinical practice mainly focuses on that. So I would like to explain mainly about what is the foundation of good clinical practice. And for that, we will have to go a little back into the history of our history. And because the development of good clinical practice has historically been reactive to all events or tragedies which have occurred in past. So the first event was the Nuremberg trials. As you all know, during the Second World War, there was the Nazis in Germany carried out several trials, which they said were trials in the Jews all over Europe. So there was a systematic genocide of the Jews. And at the end of the Second World War, it was discovered by the community, the world community at large, that around 5 million of Jews were killed, or there was a genocide by the Nazis. So as a result of that information, there was this Nuremberg trial, which was conducted in 1948, in which all those who were involved in those trials were taken into account. There was a trial conducted on them. And so the event was the Nazi experiments, in which there was experimental starvation, induced gangrene. The Jews were subjected to low barometric pressure. There was induced hypothermia, and there was induced burns and wounds. So the trial was conducted to understand why these kind of experiments were conducted. And finally, the result was that such events should not occur, such experiments should not be conducted. And what were the characteristics of this experiment was they were conducted in the participant without any consent. These experiments cause unnecessary pain, suffering, and death in the subjects. There was absence of benefit for the participants, and there was also lack of any adequate scientific rationale behind conducting these experiments. So the event was the genocide and the Nuremberg trial, and the reaction was the development of the Nuremberg Code in 1948, which was established for the purpose of preventing the atrocities of the Nazi experiments from ever happening again. It's also said in the Nuremberg Code that subject participation must be voluntary. Experiments must be supported by a strong scientific rationale. Physical or mental suffering or damage is not acceptable in any clinical trial or experiment. And the subject has the right to withdraw from the study at any point in time. So that was the basis. But that happened in 1948. Another event occurred during the 1950s and 60s. And that event was that thousands of children were born with PHOCOMELIA, that is seal-like limbs. And it was discovered that mainly these children were being born to mothers who had taken the drug thalidomide during somewhere in their first trimester of pregnancy for morning sickness. So this was eventually linked to the administration of thalidomide for treating morning sickness. Now, this drug thalidomide had already been tested in around 13 individuals, and then it was put into market for use. So the drug was already tested, but still this event occurred in around thousands of females who use it. So the reaction to it was in 1962, amendment, which was a Kufer-Harris amendment, was passed by the US Congress, which said that besides the drug being tested, there should be evidence of efficacy before approval. There should be safety before testing in humans. So they wanted the animal studies also to be performed. It should give protection to humans in research, and there should be an active review of the test data before approval. So again, an event or a tragedy, and then a reaction to the event which happened. So this led to the Declaration of Helsinki in 1964, and the four main things that were stressed on was justice in clinical studies. That is, there should be a fair distribution of the burdens and benefit of clinical studies. There should be beneficence, that is, we should maximize benefit and minimize harm. Always the benefit and the risk ratio is to be weighed, and only when the benefits outweigh the risk should that a trial be carried out. There should be non-maleficence, that is, we should not do any harm to the subjects, and we have to respect the subject, that is, autonomy of the subject is the keystone, and we have to protect the vulnerable. So in spite of all this, which was being done worldwide, mainly in North America and Europe, in America, there was this a study which was going on. This is the Tuskegee syphilis study, which was an American medical research product, which was conducted by the US Public Health Service from 1932 to 1972. And what this study was doing was it examined the natural course of untreated syphilis, mainly in black men. So the subjects, the black people, were from the Alabama, the Macon County of Alabama, and they were unknowing participants in the study. They were not told that they had syphilis, and nor were they given the effective treatment for syphilis. even after the penicillin was discovered by Sir Alexander Fleming in somewhere in the 1950s. So these black men were not offered the treatment for it even after the cure was found. So the reaction to this event, the Tuskegee study, was the US itself developed the Code of Federal Regulations of Food and Drug Administration in 1977, and that was established to regulate the conduct of clinical research in United States. And that was the first time that the concept of good clinical practice and data integrity came into effect. So again, lots of people all over the world, mainly in North America, Europe, and Japan, they were conducting clinical research in a very ethical, sound manner, taking into account the subjects' participation, their rights were taken care into, but everyone was doing it in their own separate way. So there was a need of harmonization of clinical research on a global level. And so the idea of the ICH, or International Conference of Harmonization, was established in 1989. And ICH is a joint initiative which involves both regulators as well as the pharmacological industry as equal partners in the scientific and technical discussion for the testing procedures which are required to ensure and assess the safety, quality, and efficacy of medicines. So harmonization relates to the technical requirements for registrations of pharmaceuticals for human use. So this ICH, so now GCP is always called ICH GCP. And why GCP is important is because the GCP guidelines carry the authority of law. And GCP guidelines are endorsed and they are followed by the regulators in all countries where clinical research is being carried out. Compliance to good clinical practice standard provides the public an assurance that the rights, well-being, and confidentiality of the clinical participants are being observed and they are consistently being protected. So this is the basis of the good clinical practice and how ICH GCP came into effect. Now I would like to talk a little about how clinical trials in India are being conducted. So there is this Central Drug Standard Control Organization, or CDSCO, and that is the National Regulatory Authority in India. It comes under the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, and its equivalent counterpart is the US Food and Drug Administration. The Drug Controller General of India is the main official of the CDSCO, and he or she will give the final approval for clinical trials in India. So how clinical trials in India evolved and what are the various acts and rules regarding that? So we first had the Drug and Cosmetic Acts in 1940, which and then there was a Drug and Cosmetic Rules in 1945. The Indian Good Clinical Practice Guidelines came about in 2001, and then we had a Schedule Y for that in 2005. But since March of 2019, the new drugs and the clinical trial rules have come into effect, and these new drug and clinical trial rules will supersede Part 10A and Schedule Y of the Drugs and Cosmetic Rules. So what we now have is the new drugs and the clinical trial rule, which came into effect from 25th March 2019. I have mainly highlighted what was the main thing regarding ethics committee. So now when we talk about clinical trial and we have a basic idea about what is clinical research, what is GCP, we now come to what is ethics committee. So whenever any clinical trial site wants to undertake clinical research at their particular site, they would have to have the presence of an institutional ethics committee and in the or an institutional review board or an independent ethics committee. So what the new drugs and clinical trial rules of 2019 mainly said about ethics committee was that regarding the composition of the ethics committee, that 50% of the members should not be affiliated with the institute or the organization in which the committee is constituted. The ethics committee registration would be granted within a period of 45 working days. The validity of that ethics committee registration would be for a period of 5 years. The renewal of the ethics committee registration should be done 90 days prior to its expiry. And whenever a clinical trial site does not have its own ethics committee, then that site, the clinical trials can be initiated at that site after obtaining the approval of the protocol from institutional ethics committee of another trial site or an independent ethics committee. The approving ethics committee would be responsible for study at the trial site, which should be located within the same city or within a radius of 50 kilometers of that clinical trial site. So these are the provision made for the ethics committee in the new drugs and clinical trial rules of 2019. So mainly the four main principles of ethics are, like I said, included in GCP, but in a broader aspect, it talks about the autonomy, that is respect for the person, beneficence, do good to the subjects, non-malfeasance, that is do no harm, and there should be justice to the subjects or the participants in the clinical trial. So with that, I come, lots of people want to know about what is institutional ethics committee and what is institutional review board. So they are, this is the definition of institutional ethics committee according to the ICH GCP 1.27. So it is an independent body, a review board or a committee. It can be institutional, regional, national, or supranational, which is constituted of medical professionals and non-medical members whose responsibility is to ensure the protection of the rights, safety, well-being of human subjects who are involved in the trial, and to provide public the assurance of that protection by, among other things, reviewing and approving or providing favorable opinion on the trial protocol, the suitability of investigators, the facilities at the trial site, and the methods and materials used in obtaining the documenting informed consent of the trial subjects. So this is what is done by the Institutional Ethics Committee. And IRB, or the Institutional Review Board, the definition as mentioned in the ICH GCP 1.31 is, it is an independent body constituted of medical, scientific, and non-scientific members whose main responsibility is to ensure the protection of the rights, safety, well-being of human subjects involved in the trial, among other things, and reviewing, approving, and providing continuing review of trial protocol and amendments, and the methods and materials used in obtaining and documenting informed consent of the trial subjects. So basically, in India, we have Institutional Ethics Committee who approve of a protocol before it is initiated at that particular trial site or an institute. So I would now like to speak a little about what is Institutional Ethics Committee and what is the composition of the Institutional Ethics Committee. So any head of a particular institution would constitute an Institutional Ethics Committee, and the Institutional Ethics Committee is an independent, competent, and a multidisciplinary unit. The number of persons in that is fairly small, between 8 to 12. The Institutional Ethics Committee will appoint from among its members a chairperson who would be from outside the institute and not the head of the same institute. Then there would be a member secretary who belongs to that same institute and who would conduct the business of the Institutional Ethics Committee. The other members of the Ethics Committee are a chairperson, one or two persons from basic medical science, mainly a pharmacologist, one or two clinicians from other institutes, one legal expert or a retired judge, one social scientist, a representative of a non-government voluntary agency, a philosopher, ethicist, or theologian, one layperson from the community, and then the member secretary, who is a part of the institution. So the quorum is constituted of a minimum, that is a minimum number of people who are required to conduct any ethics committee meeting, and that should be 5 persons minimum. So that 5 persons should be one basic medical scientist who is a pharmacologist, one clinician, one legal expert or a retired judge, one social scientist or representative of a NGO, a philosopher or ethicist or a theologian, and one layperson from the community. So only in the presence of these 5 people is the quorum considered to be complete, and then the business of the ethics committee would be conducted, and approvals or would be given for any particular trial protocol by this ethics committee, and then that protocol or a study would be conducted in the clinical trial site. So these are mainly the objectives and functions of the Institutional Ethics Committee, and I would like to skip them in the interest of time. So with that, I will come to what is the research being carried out at my institute, that is KAILASH Cancer Hospital and Research Center, which is run by Muni Seva Ashram at Goraj. So I am a part of this institute since 2004. I don't know if sir knows it or not, but I would take this opportunity to thank Dr. Suresh Amin sir, because he is the person from whom I got inspired to join research. Sir had conducted a good clinical practice workshop at Goraj when he was associated with KAILASH Cancer Hospital. And following that, in 2011, I got interested in doing something in research. I did a master's course in clinical research, and then I visited lots of cancer hospital, because ours is mainly a cancer hospital. So I went to Tata Memorial Hospital in Mumbai, and also Medanta Hospital in Gurgaon, to understand and see how the clinical trials are being conducted at their site, and to understand the entire procedure of the clinical research at that particular site, both at Tata and at Medanta. And following that, even in 2015, I had the opportunity to visit Memorial Sloan Kettering at New York, and I spent some time in their research department also. So in 2013, I was invited by our chairperson, Dr. Vikram Patel, to become the member secretary of the Institutional Ethics Committee, which was constituted at that point in time. And from 2014, I am looking into the clinical research at Goraj. So the research in Goraj is now encompassing all the types of research which I mentioned initially. So we are into basic research also. So in 2015, KAILASH Cancer Hospital signed a memorandum of understanding with MedGenome Lab, and MedGenome is mainly a molecular genetic lab. So it has its headquarters in California, and in India it is based in Bangalore. So when we signed this MOU, they started their own molecular genetic lab at Goraj also. So we are conducting molecular genetic studies at Goraj since 2015. And basically, we are looking into the genetic landscape of buccal mucosa and tongue cancers, We are also seeing the familial colorectal cancers, breast cancer, lung cancer studies. The genetic profiling is being done in these cancers. So that is the basic research which we are conducting at Goraj. We are also into academic studies. Now, by academic, I mean that these are non-pharma sponsored studies. So because I am an ENT and a head and neck surgeon, myself and my husband, Dr. Kantharia, we are both parts of the members of the Foundation of Head and Neck Oncology. And the Head and Neck Cooperative Group is formed of members of the Foundation of Head and Neck Oncology. And members of this Head and Neck Cooperative Group write protocols and for conduct of research trials at various institutes all across India. And based on that, those protocols, we apply for grants from various institutes, mainly ICMR and others. So these two studies, which is one is SENPOS or SENPOS, which is mainly regarding, it is a surgical trial looking into the selective neck dissection and modified neck dissection in N+ necks, mainly in oral cancers. And then there is another study, which is a mandibular preservation study, which is written by doctors at Tata Memorial Hospital. So both these studies are being also conducted at KAILASH Cancer Hospital. We are part of that multicentric trial, which is conducted all across cancer hospitals in India. We are also part of the National Cancer Grid. Sorry, I've written group there. So NCG is a grid of cancer hospitals, around 200 cancer hospitals, more than 200 across India. And again, the function of this National Cancer Grid is advancement of knowledge and research into cancers. And members of the National Cancer Grid again write protocols and apply for grants. And based on the protocols written, there are two studies. One is the SPT or second primary tumor, and then an ARREST, AREST trial, which looks into adjuvant radiotherapy in early squamous cell cancers of the oral cavity. So again, our hospital is a part of these two studies, which are multicentric studies, academic studies. These are non-pharma sponsored study. And I am very happy to say that for the SPT study, which started in 2018 at our center, we are the highest recruiting site. We have recruited about 100 subjects so far, but that is a long study. There are more than 15 institutes, cancer institutes all across India, which are part of that SPT trial. And we are also one of them. So we are into academic studies also. And recently, in 2021, we received a research grant from the Gujarat State Biotechnology Mission. Myself and our team, a research team at Goraj, we wrote a protocol and we applied for grant from the Gujarat State Biotechnology Mission. We were given this grant. The grant sum is around 68 lakhs. And we are doing this study, the protocol title, which is a genome-wide association study to decipher the host genetic factors which are associated with resistance towards cisplatin therapy in oral cancers. And we are doing this study in collaboration with the Gujarat Biotechnology Research Center, or GBRC, which is based in Gandhinagar. So this was another great achievement for our research center at Goraj, getting this grant and starting this study. So we are in the process of this trial is still being conducted. It is for a period of 3 years. At the same time, we are doing a lot of sponsored, that is pharma sponsored trials in the clinical research department of KAILASH Cancer Hospital. We are doing multiple studies in metastatic breast cancer, metastatic ovarian cancers, diffuse large B-cell lymphomas, recurrent head and neck cancers, non-squamous lung cancer, prostate cancer, and many more. And basically, we are concentrating mainly on oncological studies because we are a comprehensive care cancer hospital. And based on the number of patients that we treat per year, we are the second largest cancer hospital in the state of Gujarat. So we have a good patient population coming from different parts of India, and that is the reason why we are able to conduct so many cancer-related trials and studies. So we have a very well developed, robust clinical research team, which is very well qualified. We have a large number of investigators, that is the principal investigators and the co-investigators, who are all GCP trained. We have clinical research coordinators, we have clinical research study nurses, phlebotomists, and support staff in our research team. And we have an excellent infrastructure for conducting clinical research. We have a dedicated clinical research department. There is an investigational product storage space. There is a procedure room, an archival room, deep freezers of -20 and -70 degree for the specimens and tissues to be collected. Centrifuge, laminar and airflow, and all facilities for carrying out investigations at our site. We have completed 80 clinical trials, sponsored clinical trials till date. At present, there are around 10 studies which are ongoing. These are both pharma-sponsored and academic studies. Most of our studies are multinational clinical trials. And over the years, we have also been inspected by the US FDA. So we were inspected by the US FDA in 2016, and then in 2018, we have passed both those US FDA inspections. And the latest inspection which we were successful in was the European Medicine Agency, or EMA, GCP audit, which happened in October 2021. I will not be able to give much details about that EMA because of the confidentiality, but it was a study which was conducted at our trial in 2018 and 19, and that particular drug was put into the European market for approval, and the EMA selected our site from around 10 sites across India which had conducted that particular study. So they came for inspection in October for 3 days. They studied the entire process. They go into a great detail about the system of how the clinical trials are being conducted at a particular site, and it is a very stringent inspection which is being carried out. And I am happy to state that we were successful in that GCP audit carried out by EMA. So these were the two inspectors who came, and as you can see, I am there with my team of clinical research at Goraj. So one of the inspectors was from Netherlands, the other one was from Spain, and they were extremely happy with the way the clinical trials are being conducted at our research. So that is another big achievement for our site, because there are very few, less than 10 clinical trial sites across India who are both US FDA and EMA cleared. And we are happy that we are one of them. So to end my talk, I would like to say that India is gradually moving towards a very robust and proactive healthcare system, and it is mainly patient-centric clinical research, which is bringing unimaginable benefits to patient. Clinical trials are absolutely necessary for development of new drugs for a country like India, because that is the only way to establish the safety and efficacy of the drugs before they are introduced to the market. In the past, we were only focusing on infectious disease in India, but now there is a shift from communicable to non-communicable disease. So there is a huge new pool of patients who are introduced into this studies. Also, along with that, there has been a technological shift. So now computer literacy in India is excellent. That we get a large number of people who are computer trained, and that is the basis why clinical research has gone from strength to strength in the last few years, because we have a lot of support staff who are computer trained and who can enter all the data which is collected directly into the system. So the Indian technology industry has come to be a very powerful force globally. So I believe that the marriage between technology and the clinical trials research has given rise to new opportunity for India to be a part of clinical research as a whole globally also. And that is the reason why a lot of things are being done for clinical research. And I identify myself to be a clinician scientist. So I am a clinician also, and I take part in research trials also. I am a part of the research department also. And now I'm sure lots of you must have heard about the recent development, that is a big philanthropy which was done, around 400 crore rupees was given by the Bagchi and Parthasarathi families to the Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore, and they are going to develop a 800-bedded super speciality hospital on the campus of Indian Institute of Science, which will be a postgraduate teaching hospital also. And they are going to train doctors into research. So there is a program, a joint program, which will grant them MD and PhD and and make them ready to conduct research in medicine. So there is there will be an integration of science, engineering, and medicine. And in the future, there will be lots of doctors who will be trained into clinical research, who will take up research as their primary focus. And the future of research in India looks very bright. So with that, I will end my talk. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity and for your patient hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Saina. Kindly switch off your screen sharing. Yes. So that was wonderful. Really a great compliment and congratulations to you and your institute for developing such a nice clinical research center recognized across the world now. And it was very exciting to really learn about how the research has evolved over a period of so many decades. And your journey in particular was very exciting here. So now the house is open for any questions or comments.
Congratulations, Dr. Saina. What I was thinking is about the research. Is there a need of attitude from the doctors towards the research? Because if you establish a research institute like what you are proposing in Bangalore with a 400 crore donation, the attitude from doctors is very important. And how do you find attitude among your doctors in your institute?
So basically, sir, we are an oncology institute, a cancer hospital. So lots of doctors in our hospital are inclined towards research. So that is one of the favorable things at our center, because we are an oncology institute. So the oncosurgeons, the medical oncologists, the radiotherapists, the pathologists, the radiologists, and other medical specialties which are in our hospital, they they have an aptitude towards research. But I think overall, in general, if you are working in a clinical setting, the interest towards research is on the lower side. It is slowly gaining momentum, but overall, it is on the lower side. So basically, it is your own interest in research and how you develop a particular site and motivate others to join you in research also.
As we develop more with that Indian Institute of Science initiative of integrated approach to the whole subject, like combining both clinical as well as research and technology. I think that's going to be the way forward, because people don't find research in itself very exciting.
Yes.
But as for if you take your example, now you are a great clinician as well as a great research person also. So that kind of combination, if that is offered routinely, I think many of us will be attracted to do research.
Yes, sir. So it was an aptitude and interest from my side into research, and then the training which I got and the opportunity which my institute provided to me to enter into research. At the same time, I was able to continue with my clinical work as a ENT and a head and neck surgeon. So balancing that two and also getting this great opportunity was a plus for me, and that is the only reason why I am able to manage this and the clinical research department. I am also fortunate to have a very good clinical research team at Goraj. So it is a combination of efforts from lots of people, lots of, like you said, an integration from not just the medical fraternity, from other non-medical people also. So I have a great support staff of pharmacists, M-Pharms, clinical research coordinators who are have done MSc in biotechnology, biochemistry. We have a PhD scientist who has done in molecular genetics at Goraj also. So it is a team effort. Clinical research is basically a team effort, and I am fortunate to have a very good team on hand.
Wonderful.
But it is a learning process. I'm still learning lots of new things because it is still developing, it's still evolving, and it takes time. Any clinical research or a clinical research site, it takes a lot of time. It's not established within a period of say 1 or 2 years. It takes around, at least in my opinion, it takes around 3 to 5 years to develop a clinical research site.
How will your publication work?
So, sir, we have the academic, because we started doing a lot of academic studies, getting involved in multicentric academic research also. When we do pharma-sponsored study, that research we are not entitled to publish, because that is the part of the pharmaceutical company. But when we conduct academic studies, we can publish our research. So in the last 3 years, Goraj and Kailash Cancer Hospital, we have published around 15 papers so far in multinational, reputed journals all across, PubMed journals across India and elsewhere also. So yes, writing papers, writing manuscript for journal, that is again a big task, and we are also doing that.
Any chances of private practitioners collaborating with you for any research? I mean, do you have?
Yes, sir. Yes. If any particular doctor or institute has a protocol, if you develop a protocol, a study for clinical trial, it can be an observational study also. There has not to be any intervention of any sort, but any study you develop, supposing you want to see the post-COVID, what is the effect on the mental health status. I'm just giving an example in children or elderly. And if somebody develops a protocol for it, and they approach us for collaborating with it, then that protocol would be first put forward in our institutional ethics committee. and the institutional ethics committee would go into the merits of that particular protocol. They would debate on it. And if they are convinced about the merits of that particular protocol, they would give approval to that study. So yes, that kind of collaboration is always welcome, and it can be done.
So is there any geographical limitation to this? Like say, there has to be some distance between your institute and the private practitioner who wants to conduct a study.
So if a particular trial is being conducted, so it would be a collaborative study. And like I said in the previous also slides also, that the new drugs and trials rule has said that an ethics committee can give approval to a project which is within either at the same institute. So if our institutional ethics committee is giving approval, then that trial should be conducted at our institute also, or it can be within 50 kilometers radius of that institutional ethics committee.
So Baroda comes in your
yes, it can come into our purview. So there is a question from Dr. Manoj Yadav, and he I think wants to know about what is the approximate cost. What is the approximate charges for the ethics committee scrutiny and clearance for prospective studies? Yes, Dr. Manoj, for pharma-sponsored studies, our professional, ethics committee's fees are around 80,000. But for academic studies, which are non-pharma sponsored, it is very less, and we usually charge around 25,000.
That's good. So if there are no comments and questions, I think we end the session here. Once again, thank you, Dr. Sainaz, for agreeing to be guest speaker here. And it was really very informative and exciting to know your journey into research. So thank you very much. And next Saturday also, we have very interesting topic, and that is about BMT, bone marrow transplantations done at KAILASH Cancer Care Hospital by Dr. SYPHILIS Lavana. So looking forward to all of you to attend that next Saturday meeting, Saturday club meeting. So thank you all for joining. We end the session here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. And thank you all members.